Dominic Siow, good morning.
The amazing Andrew Davey. Good morning to you, my friend.
I feel energized already talking to you. It's ridiculous. It's awesome. Thank you.
Same here.
Hey, Dom,
Yes,
I want to say thank you because I'm really privileged to be alongside you on this journey with eqstrategist. And I wanted to take this moment because I want to get inside that incredible mind of yours. I really do. I want to capture that spirit that I always get, and perhaps it can be shared with others, but I'm going to be selfish and say this is for me to learn from you because you've got such a cool journey, my friend. You really do.
Thank you, Andrew. Eternally humble. One of my greatest quotes that I absolutely love is "Be the light or the mirror that reflects it." Man, you are absolutely the light, and you are just. I know that. I hope if the rest of my day I just spend it reflecting it to others, that would make it an amazing day. Thank you so much.
So what I thought I'd do is unscripted, let's just rock and roll. Let me maybe get inside and hear some of those really cool stories and be inspired, as I'm sure everyone will be listening to this as well. Are we cool with that?
Awesome. Let's go in the flow. I'm going to be dancing with you, Andy.
Awesome. I'm going to ask this question first, Dom. Take me back to the nerd. I love that you're so raw and vulnerable and you say, this was me and this is who I am today. Take me back to that nerdy guy you talk about, which I can't even imagine now. The guy that was shy, the guy that really didn't step outside himself, the guy that was so fearful to maybe step into his own. And I'd love to hear about that. IBM journey. I know there's a lot of things. There's so much wisdom in that.
Thank you. I hope I won't keep this too long, but I live in Australia. I've lived in Australia for 36 years now in this amazingly blessed country, but I grew up in Malaysia in a very small town of Seremban. Beautiful family, lovely parents, very strict Catholic upbringing, rules bound, and very academically driven. The entire focus of my upbringing was be successful. Mom and dad, we never had much. They always told us we have 4 sons, never have a business. My parents were very humble teachers, the kinds that never had a chance to go through university, just too poor. So they dropped out at the equivalent of year 10 in Australia, form 5 in Malaysia. And they actually did a diploma, started teaching. Back in the day, it was called Cambridge. The diploma started teaching. And in Malaysia, without having a university degree, at the peak of their dad's earnings as a teacher, 1,000 ringgit a month. That's about 350 Aussie a month. And until today, I kind of am in awe at the inspiration that they sent 4 sons through university education in Australia. The dream was very simple. Get that piece of paper we never had, and your life is going to be so much better than ours. Right? So the entire focus was on getting grades. So and my entire focus as a child was succeeding academically, getting the grades so I could go to Australia, finish that degree, and then with a degree, my life was meant to be even better. And really, it proved out to be that way. I guess I came to Australia very shy, very introverted. I chose computer science, frankly, because I felt like computers were a lot safer than people. You gotta get angry with a machine. You could bash out at it, and people. I had this. I always loved people, Andy, but I was always one of those guys that was terrified of the small talk. It just felt very disingenuine. I always looked up to the people who were the life of the party and said, man, I wish I had the gift of the gab. But hey, I was just born shy. I was just born introverted. That's me. And so I really lacked confidence. I grew up with 4 brothers, which didn't make things, didn't help so much. I was particularly shy with the opposite gender. And I still remember as a youth, when the lights go down, I grew up in the disco generation. The ball and stuff like that. And I still remember the lights go down. I knew my mates would try to drag me across the street through some unsuspecting gal and try to hook me up. And it's always a very funny story during my youth. It was like, where the heck's Dom? And the guy is taken out and ran and hidden away somewhere because I was just so terrified. That was me. But anyway, came to my university during my HSC year. I came to Australia when I was 18. To do my HSC and hopefully qualify to university. And that entire year was just head down, bum up, work my tail off, get into the best university course I could. And frankly, at that time, at 18 years old, I had no idea what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And when it came time for university choices, I chose computer science because, one, I used to be decent in math, and I thought, hey, you know, someone had told me that computer science, this thing, mathematics helps. And B, as I shared with you earlier, I was always this shy guy who, you know, and who felt that computers were a lot easier to deal with than people. But anyway, after got my degree and started working as a computer programmer. I was a COBOL programmer back in the days. I was that geeky nerd who just used to, I worked as a research assistant at the University of New South Wales. I just had the blessing as being his first developer, the late Professor Cyril Brooks, of turning his ideas into a software application that, as fortune turns out to be a commercial application which we took to the world. But anyway, 13 years later, after working with Grapevine, that first company, Professor Brooks decided to sell the company and join IBM. So here I am. My pursuit after university was simply climb the corporate ladder, get that title, that job title. And the higher you climb, the more money, the more comfort. So a lot of my beginning of my life was the pursuit of comfort, with the perception that comfort brings about success and achievement. Because the role models I had when I was growing up that was pointed out to me was, hey, look at a guy from Cambridge. Wow, Oxford scholar, amazing. And look at him, he's now driving a BMW and a Mercedes-Benz, and wouldn't life be great? You know, so those were my role models when I was growing up. And I thought that achieving that would automatically make me successful in the eyes of others. But in year 2001, I guess I had one of those life-changing moments. I was a senior manager at IBM running a consulting practice. And I woke up one morning, got a phone call from my boss, AP director, Asia Pacific director, 2 levels above me, and to be told that I was losing 30% of my team to an organizational restructure. And very frankly, I must admit with embarrassment, after 13 years in the IT industry, I had heard about the word restructure, never had a chance to experience it. You know, it sounded like one of those things that management consultants spoke about, and downsizing and right-sizing and all that. But to just learn that I had lost 30% of my team, and the deflation of my ego of feeling so small because I didn't feel I had been consulted about the decision. For 2 years, I struggled to get out of bed.
Yeah, wow.
And I found myself losing energy. I went into a very negative moment in my life, and I kept asking, why is this happening? Is this all there is? And here I am, you know, learning about all that. I felt like I had achieved it all. I was living in a good suburb in Sydney. I was sending kids to good schools, and here I was, deeply unhappy. I suspect that if I'd known more about depression, as much as depression as I do today, I would probably have been diagnosed as going through a mild depression at least during those days, because I felt myself lacking in energy and drive. But anyway, that was the real me, and just genuinely getting into, by accident, courses on personal development and realizing that success in life wasn't just about achievement, but really, there was always the assumption that successful people or high achieving people become happy. But I never thought that it was actually the opposite that was true. Fulfilled people, happy people are most successful. And that was the start of my huge realization that I learned 2 things. The quality of your life is the quality of the emotions you consistently experience. And here I was having wealth and prestige and position, and I was deeply unhappy. Most of my days were filled with frustration and annoyance and irritation and pessimism, right? And the quality of your life is the quality of your relationships. And at that time, I felt like I hadn't put enough effort into connecting with people and growing a platform of trust, even with my family, because during those 2 years, not only was my team missing a leader, but also my family. because I used to get home every day, lacking energy and going into my man cave, just asking why, and what will happen if I do not get a good position in the new structure. And that was a very huge 2 years of learning and self-reflection. And I must say that I'm ever grateful that for that first personal development workshop I ever did, because that was, I dare say, transformative for me, Andy. But anyway, I hope I'm not waffling too much, but I hope it shared with you. I was always that bookish guy who nerd, academics, books was all important, and that was all there was to it. I was insecure around people, like the social skills, like people, but just didn't have the confidence to go out there and broker a conversation, because I felt like I needed the gift of the gap to be able to do that.
Yeah, wow. That's really, so how old were you then, Dom? Well, how old were you, and how many kids?
How old was I when that incident happened?
Yeah, so that 2 years.
Well, just to reveal my age, in 2001, I probably was.
Which is why I did it, Dom, just so you know.
Thank you. I was probably, wow, that would have been 17 years ago. So that I would probably have been about 37. I mean, someone at a stage where someone would have said, close to the peak of his powers, right?
Yeah, wow.
He should have been riding up and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I know, there's this gift of EQ, and you served so many people in the process. What was that moment, that it all just said, with family in tow? I mean, that's a big thing to step out in the world, and the courage. What was it, I guess, from the journey to that point where you said, I've got to take this step? Because that's a daunting thing. I can only imagine, with family and everything that was, I guess, responsibilities in the world.
Right. Well, a lot transpired. That first personal development workshop I attended was actually a 4-day program called Unleash the Power Within by Tony Robbins. I'm sure you're familiar with that, Andy.
Yeah.
And it was life transforming in so many ways. Firstly, I learned about the importance of emotions. I didn't even realize that emotions were something I had control over. That how I felt wasn't a result of my environment. The environment can affect the way I feel, but I alone can choose my response to it. And a huge part of my response to things that happen around me is, how is my emotional response? And just learning that I had the tools to do that, and started to, walk differently and speak differently and just ask different questions at work could really shift the way I felt. That was starting to have a transformative impact on my work life and my personal life. I come home and, I couldn't choose whether or not my day had gone well or not well, but I could choose how my evening went simply by going into the house, and instead of going, what's for dinner? But hey, how's your day? Just doing something simple like that, was a tool that I used to shift the way I felt, and it had just amazing impact around with people around me. But anyway, from that little journey of my personal transformation and having seen others and how they started responding to me differently, here was this guy who was conservative, maybe boring, very reliable, but not very outgoing. And all of a sudden, here's this person who's exuding this positivity and energy. Because one of the things one of the key decisions I made in that first workshop, and what I love, one of Tony's favorite quotes that I absolutely love is, he says this: it's in the moments of your decision that your destiny is shaped. You can't change. It's not the blowing of the wind, Jim Rohn says. It's the setting of the sail that determines where you end up. And realizing that, and my first step to transformation had to be that I can't change the circumstances in my life, but I absolutely alone have the power to choose how I respond to it. I can either keep saying that situation made me the way I am, or I can say, you know what, thank you. I choose how I want to respond, and how I respond is chosen out of a desire to make my life and the life of others around me extraordinary. And so one of the key decisions I took away from UPW was this: from today onwards, my life has to be extraordinary, not good, not average, extraordinary. Because frankly, up to that stage, my life had been kind of middling. You know, there were ups and downs, and and it was a reflection of my emotional state. Some days were good. You know, I got a promotion. My team got a good result. My children did what I told them to do. Awesome. And some other days it was like, you know, I was having bad days. So one of the shifts I made was every single day had to be extraordinary, because who knows where I'm going to be tomorrow. And number two, what's going to make it extraordinary is energy that I put out. I alone have a choice as to how I show up. So from that onwards, that was and every single day I'll develop rituals, whether it's rituals in the way I moved, rituals in the way I connected with people, the language that I use. You know, one of the key things that Tony shared with us was fake it till you make it, right? That we are who we are, not necessarily we're not born that way, but we were conditioned that way. And so I chose to be the child that I used to be, because I still remember that 3-4-year-old Asian kid that was full of life and full of courage and was a risk taker. And I was given a nickname when I was 3 or 4 years old as the one who was the joker in the family. You know, but it was just funny, you know, as you grow up, you start becoming more stern and walk around with a frown, because you thought maybe that's how society respects you more. I had become, when I started to learn that I had chosen to become conservative, introverted, geeky, nerdy. And if I wanted to, I could build on that and to be even more. And a huge part of that was simply reclaiming who I really was as a child. You know, and being more open and being more empathetic and being more accepting of people, regardless of color and creed and their beliefs, right? That really opened up huge dimensions for me. So anyway, after faking it till I made it for a few years, people around me were remarking on, geez, what a transformation you've made. I was absolutely passionate about taking my learning to another level and learning about how I could learn what these wonderful coaches that helped me make this massive transformation in my life, what did they do that for me, and what tools did they use? Because imagine if I could have those tools and I used that to help my team at IBM. Because in those 2 years, my team at IBM, sure, they could have benefited more from WebSphere training and DP2 training, but really everyone was like me, going through change and struggling with it. It was affecting their morale, their engagement, their productivity, and obviously the results of our team. And all we had were managers who were so strong managers, not leaders, that they kept restructuring again and again and again, without understanding that it's your ability to engage the hearts and minds of these people that really matter. You know, they just were not in touch with how people were feeling and thinking about the change and what it meant for them. And because I had been through that state of depression, I knew that the cost to human lives on that was significant. But cut a long story short, I decided to sign up for a leadership program. It was a 6-day leadership program in San Diego called Leadership Mastery. And it was on that program when I saw a speaker on stage who I believe used to be a former engineer, and here he was inspiring people with the change he'd made, and he traveled around the world as a coach, and he spoke so authentically and so spontaneously that, you know, I've only had a couple of moments in my life, Andy, when I kind of had this deep knowing, this is what I'm meant to be doing. You know, something that most people would say, geez, represents great uncertainty. And yet it was a deep sense of feeling, of deep certainty. And when I saw that person on stage and he asked the question, if anything were possible, right? And you have decided to make your life about fulfillment of your highest potential in order to serve, right? What is your legacy going to be? And in my heart, it was like, man, I want to do what you are doing, the guy on stage. And I really wish that even more people in the corporate world, my IBM colleagues, my Grapevine colleagues, all the people who are at work could be more open-minded and could even connect with this message. And I say, I want to do this and I want to bring this message back to my team and empower them even more. But very frankly, Andy, when I came out of that little talk, here I was super passionate and all that. And Sue, my dear wife was in the audience with me, and she came up to me excitedly, and she was like, "Hey, Nick, you know, when they ask you that question about what do you want to do with the rest of your life that would create this fulfillment and legacy, what did you have in mind? What came to you? What came to you?" And frankly, I was so afraid about her response. I was only half truthful. I was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure." Because here we were, age 37, three young ones in tow. I think our kids were probably at that time 9, 7, and 3, you know. And in schools, we had all these aspirations of putting them to the best schools we could afford, because that's what my parents did for us, humble teachers. So I felt I had this obligation to do the same for them. And a huge mortgage in a nice suburb. And in my heart, I was thinking of going out there and being bold and pursuing this, what I felt was a calling in my life, to do what I love doing best and make the biggest difference in the way that I could. And I was afraid to share it with the one that I love most, you know, Sue. And but it's amazing how important people are in your life, Andy, just like you have been to me. And I think she saw right through me, and she looked me in the eye, and she was like, "I know what you think. You want to be like that guy on stage, right?" You know, and frankly, I was just blown away. And I said, but no, it's just I'm thinking, you know, I got a good job at IBM, right? And she was like, "Mate, we've been through this journey together. Life's too short. If your heart tells you that, go make it happen. We'll always be behind you. If it means we have to downsize and do whatever it takes, you know, till we realize that, give it a go. Don't wake up one day wondering." And Andy, I frankly, at that moment, all I felt was gratitude and love. And you can imagine what that did to my self-belief, you know, in a time when I didn't believe in myself, someone else believed more in me. And that lifted me, and it was like, yes, this is going to happen. I got my partner right behind me, and watch out, world, right? But, you know, frankly, looking back now, I probably didn't at that time even put myself in her shoes to understand how vulnerable she must have been by saying, "Mate, you got to do this." And, you know, mate, you got to have great people in your life. I know that you know that. And I truly, really am blessed with that. And so that was the start of my transformation. I kind of went back to work, and by that time, Andy, I had been, just by asking one question and responding to it. You know, I came back from one of the other workshops before this leadership camp, learning that if I wanted to experience fulfillment in my life, you know, you see, coming away from those workshops, so one of the biggest distinction I made was success doesn't equal fulfillment. In fact, sometimes it's the opposite.
Yeah.
And whatever you focus on expands. So I said, you know what? If I want fulfillment, and that's a priority for my life, I can't keep doing what I'm doing, right? Keep doing what you're doing, and you keep getting what you're getting. Insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result. And all my life, up to that stage, I had focused on my personal comfort, security, and position, promotion, significance. And when I learned, and I didn't just learn it intellectually, but I learned it deep inside, that fulfillment comes from growing, getting out of your comfort zone in order to serve, right, and make a difference to other people. And I think you and I know that and know from a deep place that there's so much more fulfillment in giving than receiving, right? And so when I decided, I woke up that morning after one of those workshops, and I said this question: if today was my last day at IBM, what's the single thing I could do to make the biggest difference to my team?
Wow.
And the answer that popped up was, teach them what you've learned.
Wow.
And just taking that action, even though I was scary as, you know, here my mind was filled with doubt and insecurity. I'm not HR, I'm an operations tech geeky nerd. No one will listen to me. I got no credibility, I got no degree. But I think one of the things I also learned, there was a great quote, was if I can't, I must, and if I must, I can, right? Your brain is just there to keep you safe. It's trying to give you comfort and ease. But the human spirit beyond the brain, right, craves fulfillment. And so it's about the spirit managing the brain, not allowing the brain and the ego dictate. And when I said yes to that moment of saying, I'm going to run that workshop, that first workshop has brought me to where I am today, Andy. That first decision out of courage and the heart to serve, the feedback I got from the participants was like, oh my goodness, where did that come from? And frankly, I didn't seek to wow them. I didn't seek to do whatever. I was just in there in my element and just wanted to share and be passionate without expecting anything back. And it was really the first time in my life I had really been doing that with that intent. And the feedback was so encouraging. And that one hour lunch and learn session, brown bag session that I facilitated at IBM, not part of my role, for a few good friends initially, became a monthly affair, and then became invitations from other departments who had heard about this dude who was running workshops that help people with resilience. And when my boss finally got to hear about it, I was doing it very, very secretly, not wanting my boss to even know, because I wonder what he would think about this stuff, And I was doing it at my own time during my lunch hour, right? And so anyway, that and the combination of going there and being inspired by this wonderful coach on stage inspired me to get back to IBM one day and speak to my boss, Michael, amazing Michael Graff. And I said, Michael, you probably heard about my workshops, and by now you have experienced some of that. Here's what I'm thinking. I really want to walk the talk. I can't tell people to live their dreams and pursue and find their calling if I'm not walking the talk. And I feel like I'm meant to be doing this. And here's another relationship in my life that was so instrumental in me making that change. Michael, my manager at that moment, potentially about to lose his operations manager, one of his key people, I suppose, looked me in the eye and says, Tom, mate, life is too short. You haven't done. Go do it, man. What's the worst can happen? 2 years down the track, if it doesn't work out, come back here. We'll be here for you. And Andy, was like, having people believe in me is like such a blessing. And I feel ever, ever grateful for that. But anyway, I took that plunge. I literally gave 1 year's notice. I was so... And really that day when I said to Michael, I was thinking of shifting my career, that took a lot of vulnerability, because I knew I was potentially saying to me, overlook me for any promotions.
Wow, yeah.
That was a huge, that conversation itself was a huge step. But every decision I've made where I've embraced vulnerability out of the intent to serve, it's just opened up those, mate. And today it's not just a concept that I have in my head, it's something that I believe in the fabric of my soul. Because the last 13 years have been the most extraordinary years of my life, quite apart from having my kids and the years before that, certainly from a fulfillment standpoint and life becoming an adventure, boy, it's anyway, I'm feeling incredibly blessed to be here in this moment, sharing this little story with you, Andy.
Wow. Now, I want to capitalize on something before we move on to the journey that's EQ. You said something before, which I love and I want to know more. You mentioned that it felt incredible for people to believe in you. At what point did that transition to you believing in yourself? What had to happen? For some people, maybe if someone's listening into this and they have that level of belief, but still the fear to take the step. Then they have those people that say you should do it. What is it that helps you transition from somebody believing in you to then you saying, well, hang on a minute, if they believe in me, I also believe in me. Absolutely. What was that transition?
Yeah, I think one of the key things I learned throughout my journey is the importance of trust. I think in the cornerstone of every relationship between two people is trust. Without trust, everything gets much harder and it's less fun, right? With trust, everything gets easier. I think it was Stephen M.R. Covey who wrote the book, The Speed of Trust. Love that book. And he says there's nothing faster than the speed of trust. But sometimes we fail to realize, and I certainly didn't realize this until someone pointed it out to me, the most important person you have to trust is you. Do you trust you? Right? Do you trust you? Would you sign up for your course? Right? And I learned that there are two very important things to build trust, and build trust even with me, right? One, I had to have the competence, the skills. You got to be competent, no matter how great with character and good intention someone has. If I'm going to a chiropractor, I always say, or rather the knee surgeon, in a few years, Andy, I suspect I'm going to have to maybe, unless stem cell surgery improves in a hurry, and I'm optimistic that it will, I might need a knee reconstruction because I got bone on bone with my right knee and the cartilage is just worn out. But if I were to go to get my knee done, I need someone ideally with both character meaning this person I sense has got my back, first and foremost. And number two, who's also highly competent. Right? So if I got someone with great character but doesn't have a good track record of doing great knees and helping them recover, well, cost me some doubt. If I got someone who's highly competent with a lot of good track record, but seems to be only interested in my money, I might still not feel comfortable about doing it for that person. So I needed to be a person, first and foremost, that I could look in the mirror and trust it. So this person had to walk the talk, had to have the courage, right? Had to be forgiving to myself whenever I fell down and picked myself up, right? And who also walked the talk, who would do and was competent, had the skill to deliver. And so attending a lot of those training programs were essential for me to build that confidence, on how to influence and how to communicate and use the power of stories. I learned that there was a skill, even connecting with people, right? Picking up the phone and saying, hey, how you doing? Instead of, yep, this is Tom. Right? There was a skill, and the more rehearsed I was at it, because out of an intent to serve, it becomes natural, it becomes me. And so a huge part of that was developing the skills, and not only that, then really putting out to practice. And those mini workshops, those lunch and learn sessions, it wasn't an intent to hone my skills. I really did it out of the pure intent to serve. But what became the feedback I got from that session was like, Dom, wow, I really love this. I said, what specifically did you like about that? And that was me being vulnerable, right? What specifically did you like about it? I love your passion. I love your commitment. I love your eye, the use of your tone and your voice. And perhaps in this element here, you could have elaborated more. I just learned to hone my craft. But the overall feedback on everything that I did was, mate, that was awesome. You're on the right track. And so I was building my competence. So one, I learned the stuff, I practiced it and got really good feedback from people. And I wasn't shy about asking that feedback. And B, I had to literally do my very best. And I'm still working practice up to today, Andy, to be authentic about what I talk, what I speak about. And so, and being authentic is about being the same to everyone around me, the same human being, the one who wants to transform, be the light that reflects on other people, regardless of whether it's my Piper, who's 15 years old and very arthritic, and I find myself getting impatient because she stands in front of me when I want to watch the tally, and I get a little bit impatient. And I learned that if I'm truly authentic, am I coming from empathy or impatience? That is just something that I'm work in progress in, but I want to, and it will be a lifelong journey, but just wanting to be a great person of great character authentically in my life, and continuing to hone my craft in my competency. But kind of long story short, I had to build both of those, right? You have to learn the skills, and it's a learned, and many of these skills are learned traits. And secondly, I had to just go out there and do it. But I think people relate to you most when they can see someone who's sincere and genuine and walks the talk. And so
Yeah.
That's. I hope that answers your questions, mate.
It does indeed. And I'll highlight one thing. Piper's a 15-year-old dog, so someone listening might be concerned. Your 15-year-old's got arthritis.
Probably, what's that in human years, Andy?
Yeah, that's going well, right? Now you're going to test me? What's that? 7 bars? Wow, that's
15 times 7, that's 105.
105. Yeah, that's incredible.
Amazing model of unconditional love. But
Yeah.
she's put into my life, I believe, to teach me so much about authenticity and looking in the mirror about how I respond to someone
Yeah.
who has.
And see, here's what I love, Dom, is you are that. And, you and I have been in this industry, I guess, of personal development, if you want to give it a label, but, just around people that support people. And I have witnessed and seen and experienced inauthenticity. And by that, I mean, I've had the privilege of being behind the scenes of some places and thinking, how come he's like that on stage, but then here he is being disrespectful to someone who's there to support. I've had those moments, and it's very rare it happens. I'm not saying, it's good, bad, right or wrong, but it happened for me to experience. And one of the things I guess I love about you is you are that same guy, no matter who the person is in front of you. You live it, you breathe it. Now, we're all human beings, so we all have our moments. I totally get that. We can't be on all the time, but that's testament to your character, mate. It's very
cool.
cool.
Risk of our audience thinking that this is a bromance going on.
Oh, of course. Well, it is, mate. It is.
Connect because I sincerely, from the deepest part of my heart, feel that about you.
Yeah. Well, let's show that it's not a scripted bromance then. The other day we were at a training, and what was amazing is I watched you. We just got out of the car, and I watched you walk straight over and said, I'll be with you guys in one moment. You said to me and to Sue, and you walked straight over and you greeted Manny. I think his name was Manny. The security guard, right? The security guard.
Yeah.
They're those little moments. And would you mind sharing that? Because that's you. Like, that's you all over.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Well, money is this one of I've worked with this amazing semiconductor company. They're my family, but they were my first client in Singapore, and 13 years later, here I am still continuing to, and I'm ever grateful for Global Foundries because it's opened up doors to so many other clients in the region. And but anyway, I was walking every day. I get through that, and typically before the great Andrew Baby joined us in our life, I cabin in there, right? And I'm always stopped at the security, and Money, this jovial chap, is always there in the heat of the sun, often with a clipboard, and he gives me this beaming style. And even from a distance, he'll put up his hand and say, "Hello, Mr. Siow," and I always look him in the eye and says, "Money, I know that sometimes maybe even people might take it for granted, but I just want you to know how much I appreciate you, because here you are in the heat of the sun doing what you do best. And because of you, these people at the plant, they're safe. Don't ever forget that someone appreciates it. I just want to express that to you." And ever since then, we've been like the best of buddies. I go in there, "Hey, Money, how are you doing? Hello, Mr. Siow." That's him. And so the other day, I just saw him very early in the morning after I got off your car, and he was walking along, and I just sensed that he was looking a little bit despondent. But anyway, just normally I just said, "Hey, Money, how you doing?" And I went through and just wanted to shake his hand and, "How's life?" And he shared with me that his last day in that company was 3 days away, and he was feeling very sad because it had been a place that was magical for him. Wow. And so I kind of just express my appreciation and my gratitude, and then I shared that. I think if you may remember, I shared that with the participants in the workshop that day, and I was so glad to hear. And that speaks about culture of Global Foundries. So many people knew about Money, right? And but they didn't know that he was leaving. And I just saw that they really felt for him. And that night, I wrote to one of my very dear friends at Global Foundries, and I mentioned to him that Money was leaving on Friday, and that he might want to, it's just an opportunity for him to create a magic moment. I know how wonderful that feels, both for How and for Money. Far too many people, Andy, I've learned. I mean, at my juncture of my career where many of my contemporaries are retiring and or have recently retired or are thinking of retirement. And very sadly, I must say, the majority are leaving the end of their career. The one that has occupied maybe one third of their life for the last 30, 40 years. And the primary feeling they have on their last day is relief and thank God it's over.
Yeah, wow.
And that saddens me greatly. It really ignites my passion for wanting to create workplaces that inspire and bring out the best in others. Because, I don't know about you, Andy, but my career the last 13 years in what I've been doing has brought me so much joy and adventure and fulfillment, and the friendships I've developed has been extraordinary. It's taken me to 135 different companies and 11 different countries that I probably would never have gone to, and met a gazillion of people who are now friends, just friends that I just love to go out and hang out with, like How and even money to go out there and have a beer with him, right? And, I wonder how many organizations have monies in this world who are leaving and their colleagues don't even know. And there's this missed opportunity of reminding that person of how meaningful that person has been in your life. And so, anyway, I kind of shared that with How, and How is this massive heart, and he shared that with a few other people, with his colleagues and VPs, and all of them apparently went up and gave him a really nice surprise and a little bit of an ang pao, given that it's Chinese New Year time. And I can only imagine, I wasn't there to witness it. I felt very blessed that How closed the loop and shared with me some pictures and the story, and you can only imagine how I felt last Friday evening when I got that text message, knowing that money is off somewhere, and perhaps having an extra spring in his step, because How took the energy and the drive to go out there and acknowledge him, put his arms around him. And How is this chief of staff, right? So very senior person in the organization. Especially in the culture in Singapore where it's very hierarchical, this means such a big deal, to the people. Just treating them as great human beings and fellow travelers in this life. But thank you for acknowledging that and sharing that. It's not just me having a great moment that morning and then having that seed planted in my head that, boy, wouldn't it be nice to create a magic moment for money? But anyway, the biggest beneficiary of that was me, because on a Friday evening, I was greeting from year to year, and it's really awesome.
That's so cool. So let me bring in a tangible then. That's maybe a key takeaway. Help us understand. You and I know very well, culture is one of the most, if not the most important thing in any organization. So I'd love to pick your brain and really appreciate, all this wisdom, this experience of 135 different companies and organizations. Help us maybe give us an insight into culture. What do you see? What do you know? What do you know needs to evolve for a lot of companies? And tell us about that. What can we learn from you in regards to this word culture in an organization?
Thank you. Andy, culture has become one of those things that I've become very, very passionate about. Frankly, before this journey started, about 17 years ago, prior to that fateful call that morning that made this massive transformation in my life, I didn't know much about workplace culture. Culture for me was, your heritage, your racial, religious background, But workplace culture is this, in summary, it's the way people do what they do, how people do things around here. Workplace culture, how people do things around here. And particularly, it's on a day-to-day basis, and especially when times get tough, right? And you can literally walk into an organization today and sense the culture. And culture is about shared values and beliefs about what success is. For instance, in some organizations, you can tell just observing meetings that culture is, success is sucking up to your boss.
Yeah.
And how that, the level of trust that creates around people. And I become very passionate about culture because where I was, right, that phone call that morning, I want you to imagine how my life would have been when my boss said to me, Dom, you're losing 30% of your team today. Any questions? And this guy went stone cold silence on the other side of the phone. And all I felt was fear and anxiety and resentment. And I'm like, why the heck are you doing this to my team? What have we done to deserve this? But I just didn't have the courage to speak up. And I fully owned that conversation. Because I want you to imagine, Andy, if I, in that split second, instead of going in my head, why is this happening? Why wasn't I consulted? And that was a habit because I found myself going into that dark space for 2 years in my life. It wasn't that situation, it was the questions I kept reflecting on. Mm-hmm. But I want you to imagine in that split second, instead of going, why is this happening? I had the courage and confidence to go, Keith, I'm so grateful to you because it's only 4:30 a.m. in Singapore and you took the time out to call me and consult me about this. I'm grateful. Can you give me 2 minutes to pull the car by the side of the road and give you my undivided attention? Keith, you're sitting in Singapore, seeing what you're seeing dangers, threats, and opportunities that I'm not seeing on the ground. Head down, bum up, being very task-oriented. Tell me, why are we doing this? And I would have learned if I had exercised that courage and vulnerability and the skill to ask the right questions. I would have learned that in fact, my manager was taking a very courageous decision to drive a transformation that if he had not done, 5 years later, our department would have been non-existent. Yeah. And whilst I personally had a significant, and I would say 99% of why that conversation didn't turn out that way, because if I had done that, and imagine the next question being, Keith, where do you see ourselves 3 years from now? I can't change the decision. However, I want to be clear about what the outcome is. Wow. And actually sought his support, right? Thanked him for his courage and sought his support for the 30% of my team, right? To support them in every possible way to find another role in the organization, to find or empower them with the skills of resilience, right? And also to help the 70% of my team who I realized had to do more, even more to hit our targets if we were to avoid further cuts. But imagine if I had that conversation with him, how would my profile with my boss have changed, or the way he felt about me? And how much more of the leader would I have been with my team for the next 2 years, instead of going into my cave and feeling really sorry for myself, right? And so I took full ownership of it. The skills of resilience and empowerment is, I feel, something very passionate about, that we need to empower people. And because most cultures today, I would say, I shouldn't say most, but certainly many of the cultures, organizational cultures that I've come to today, much of the culture has been developed through success is not making mistakes. Yeah. Success is about achieving KPIs and targets. Success is not stuffing up. Success is being in the good books of your boss. That's culture. And you know what? I must also say that if I felt that in my previous company at that moment, they had a culture that in fact sought for me to speak up, encouraged for me to speak up, that split-second conversation would have been so different from my team. But they just didn't have that culture. It was very top-down, do as you're told, command, direction. At that moment, with that particular manager, in every organization, the manager drives the culture of their teams. I wouldn't say it's an organizational thing, but certainly there is a certain feel and pattern about the culture. Right up to the 1980s, the culture very much was led by what I call transactional leadership. If I need you to do more, it's carrot and stick motivation. If you stuff up, warning letters, right? You do not get a promotion. And that creates behavior of a certain kind,
Mm.
right? And in certain cultures, and if you do well and you achieve your targets, you get promoted. The pain and pleasure principle, right? And so right up to then, if you wanted to do even more from your staff, you had to give them more. But for me, carrot and stick motivation is very old school. It's 1980s. Today, especially in that period of 2, 3, 4, 5 years at IBM during that restructure, we had a lot of staff taking salary decrements. Staff who having to work 5 days a week cut down to 4 days, and expected to do even more just to keep afloat.
Yeah.
The problem with old school transactional management style leadership, carrot and stick, is the moment the carrot is not there, the bonuses have been proven to sometimes to actually often be a detriment to human performance, because one year you get a bonus, yippee, everyone's feeling good. And next year, when times are tough and everyone doesn't get a bonus, everyone morale drops. But it was meant to be a bonus. And most people lose the fact, right? So carrot and stick extrinsic motivation during this period, uh, and looking forward in the next 20, 30 years, where pace is happening faster than ever, where you're expected to get even more from your staff and give them less very often, based on the practical realities, right? And that's the challenge for most organizations as to whether they will survive or disappear, like the Codex of this world, the Lotus 1, 2, 3, or the organizations that have just sunk because they have been slow to adapt, right? And so I find that many organizations are very good at coming up with a transformation strategy. In 5 years, we'll automate this. We use artificial intelligence to achieve this. But what they fail to have is to recognize often is that, do you have the culture where people willingly, intrinsically come with you, right, out of their own accord, because they can see the bigger picture, because they're passionate about your business, where success is just being the best I can be each and every day to serve my organization's mission, a mission I'm passionate about being a part of. And I think that failure for managers to recognize this is one of the greatest opportunities, I think, right? And so that's, in the absence of that, is costing to me personally, it's a massive cost to human lives every day. People who are just living lives of quiet desperation and wondering if their job is going to be existing. And if people are in that mode, I know it affects their level of engagement and their productivity and the pace of change at which the organization goes through. One particular research, Andy, was really helpful for me. I can't remember where it was. I think Fortune magazine. It said that there's three types of employees. Yeah. The engaged employee outperforms the satisfied worker. The satisfied worker being the person who goes to work, doesn't feel like I've got a choice, I need to pay the bills, it gives me a salary, I'm not passionate about what I do, I don't feel empowered at all, but hey, I need a job, right? The engaged worker outperforms a satisfied worker 38%. It means this person gets the job done by Thursday morning, what it takes all week for the other person to do. And the research also showed that the inspired worker, the one that will go above and beyond and drive things, right? This person outperforms the satisfied worker 138%.
Wow.
So this person gets the job done by Tuesday morning, what it will take all week for the other person to do. And culture and the way managers lead their teams is a significant determinant on whether or not you have satisfied workers or inspired workers.
Yeah.
And I feel that there's this skill and empowerment of leaders, right, of organizations to bring out the best in their people, because you can't get more out of people. There's only so many hours in the day, right? 9 to 5, 9 to 8, 9 to 10. Today with global teams, 24 hours around the clock with a pager under your pillow is common. People are getting drained out, right? You just can't get more time out of people. But it's really about the quality of that time. And the quality of time is determined by the emotions that people put into what they do. You got a passionate employee, this person is going to outperform the satisfied employee 10 times and give you so much more. And here's what I believe also. The passionate, engaged, inspired employee is so much happier. And then to bring this love and the inspiration back to their families at the same time. And we are making the world an even better place by creating workplaces where people see it as a place where they find fulfillment, where they see it as an opportunity to grow, to learn, especially through times of change. You're always having to get out of your comfort zone, learn new skills, stay relevant in order to serve a higher purpose and be passionate about it. And if you can do that for humanity, that would be amazing. But anyway, I think there's enough reams of information out there about culture. But in summary, many organizations are so focused and geared towards achievement. Like I used to be, get that grade, get that university degree, get that house, get that title, without talking about what are the behaviors we need to demonstrate to get there? How are we feeling? What are relationships like? To me, that's culture. How people feel about coming to work, what their expected behaviors are, and aligning a team on that. But having observed amazing places where people are feeling so empowered and seeing the difference in the joy and the productivity, regardless of where it is in the world, and seeing places where it's the opposite, transactional, old school versus transformational leadership styles. I'm just passionate about helping organizations make that transition, right? And that growth is one of the most fulfilling journeys a leader and their staff can make. It's very similar to the journey that I personally had to make. If you look at me as a company, as an individual, as a company of one, I know firsthand how rewarding and fulfilling that can be. And that's just the gift that I would love to bring to every individual in every organization.
Yeah.
I hope that helps.
Really? Oh, it's a great insight. And it's funny, I'm just reading a book by Simon Sinek, and something you said just now really resonated from listening this morning, and that is that no organization has pulled through a crisis and been managed through a crisis. They've been led through a crisis, be that change or whatever it is. It's that leadership will pull people through. Management will not force a crisis to be okay and smooth sailing on the other side. That's super valuable what you just shared, Dom. It
Wonderful.
is.
Wonderful.
So let's bring it to EQ. And, I love everything about EQ strategy and what you stand for. As you said then, the wonderful gift is that, people are people. People go to work and spend majority of their life. And if they do that in a fulfilling place, what does that do then when they take it home to inspire their kids and themselves and their relationships and their family and so on and so on? I love that about what EQ represents. So maybe let's say Dom's lived a full life as he has already, and it's the end of the moment. It's his last day on earth, and someone's going to read your eulogy, right? I'm going to throw this curveball, mate, because I know you already have the answer for this. Someone read it. What do you want them to remember you by? If they look at all of your, they're not achievements. There's this appreciation of the gift of what Dom shared with the world. What would they say? What do you want to be remembered for?
I think most importantly, if there's one word that would describe it, is something that you and I really relate with, and that's authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who believed in what he believed in, saw the higher good in others, and walked the talk. Someone who lived by this quote that I shared with you earlier, the quote that really resonates with me is, seek to be the light or the mirror that reflects it. I think if someone would have said that about me, it would be like, awesome. Someone would have said that just by being around him, I felt even better about myself, and my day just lifted. Awesome. So yeah, I think that's, and for me, I know that up to the day I die, it will be a lifelong process to be authentic. And the most important person I want to have said that about me, are not the people that, it would be amazing if people at my workshops and they all did that, but people that see me in my worst moments, my wife, the people that, if Piper could speak up, the people that perhaps I often take for granted, or the people that I don't stand much to gain from, right, so to speak, right? those people would be the ones, it would be as meaningful as anything to know that, man, he always believed in the goodness of others and he always sought to bring out the very best in others. And he lived it, he walked the talk. I think that would be that would be
Wow.
the most important thing for me, anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome. Final question for you, Dom.
Yes, sir.
eqstrategist had a birthday 2019 January, which is very significant, and I realize it's an evolution, and it's also courage to for us to be in this conversation, for me stepping into your world, and and expanding this vision, and me really seeing and sensing that leadership, and believing in the authenticity of this mission. What's 2019 have in store, for eqstrategists, for Dom, and for all the people you'll inspire and interact?
Wow. Thank you. I think 2019, if even more of our clients could benefit from the work that we bring to their lives, particularly if they could experience even more of Andy and Jack, all these wonderful people that have come into my life, and I'm like, man, my clients could really benefit from their health and their help and their love and their passion and compassion. If even more of our clients experience that, and we were running culture transformation projects, developing leaders, helping create even more resilient people, and strengthening and deepen collaboration between teams, if we could do even more of that than we have in 2018, that would be amazing. We're looking at legacy building, so it's about also starting the process of, I wrote a book about 18 months ago, and one of my goals is to writing a book was a huge, it's a personal sense of deep satisfaction for me, but it was prompted by the desire to make sure that if I get run over by a bus tomorrow, my work lives on and touches my great-grandchildren's lives, and they know what grandpa's journey has been like, and hopefully they'll learn from the arrows in my back and benefit from that. But it was also with an endeavor to move me towards my vision of touching 1 million lives in my work before my time's up. So books, knowing that no matter how many people I have in my workshops every day, which is what I love doing best, I'm going to have to live to break the Guinness Book of World Record in terms of number of years lived if I'm going to touch 1 million, at this stage. So that book was born out of that, and this year is about looking to, you can write a book, but if it's not in people's hands and changing their lives, what's the point? So really, area of growth for me is marketing. So learning how to get it out there even more to the right people who could do with it, and also to start our first online training programs, so that while we're sleeping, even more lives are touched, and we can create those massive ripples in the pond so that even more people can benefit from us. And we're creating this inspiration and hope for people when they're going through a lot of change and adversity, particularly through their work life. Awesome. So books, online training, touching even more lives, especially getting even more of my wonderful group of people I believe in and love so much, you and Jack and Caroline Crosby, out there to the world, so that and who knows, maybe even Nat, that we've heard about Nat, even more, to be able to empower other people to experience that love. That would be amazing. That would be an amazingly exploring year. It already has been, but yeah. So that's what's in store as far as eqstrategist is concerned, Andy.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, and introducing the start of our first public leadership development program that you and I have been talking about.
Yeah, this is exciting.
And building the leaders that can, it's about empowering other people, because if we touch 15, 20, 30 lives, and each of those people could touch 15, 20, 30 people's lives, then that would really be an amazing, I feel, worthwhile legacy to leave behind.
Wonderful. Dom, I'm out of questions. Anything you want to say? Final words? Anything at all?
But thank you for hearing me out. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think this is only the second interview I've done.
Oh, wow, really?
13 years. And so this is only my second time doing this. And much as I love being in front of people, even being in front of a camera is still a little bit vulnerable for me. And, that whole thing about being a public figure and stuff like that. But anyway, I've done this with a pure intent of hoping that someone will benefit from some inspiration, and also benefiting from experiencing some of your love and Thank you for being a great listener. Thank you for being a great facilitator of this conversation. I can't wait to do the same and reciprocate because, man, I'm so excited to get to know you even more.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Dom, thank you. I got so much out of that personally. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Love doing this too.
Awesome.
Cheers, buddy.